this is Amber Marie from Forging Foundations. Today I am bringing to you a look at the new curriculum from The Good and the Beautiful for their math. The Level K just came out this past month in June, and I'm going to be giving you a look at the course book along with the different manipulatives that are coming with it. So let's go ahead and take a look. So here's everything you get when you order The Good and the Beautiful Level K math curriculum. It comes with 2 course books, a part 1 and a part 2. There are 117 lessons in the workbooks, along with assessments and an appendix section, which we'll take a look at when we go through the flip through. You also get the math activity box that has a majority of the manipulatives that you will need for the curriculum. There are a few things you will need to collect that are small household items that you'll probably have around the house or that are very cheap to buy at a grocery store. You also have access to PDFs for answer keys along with MP3s for different songs that you'll be using throughout the school year focused on the calendar. And those are all available on Jenny Phillips' website, and I will show you in this video how to access those. So when you order the curriculum, you will get a math activity box. In this box, you'll have the manipulatives that are included with the curriculum. Some of these manipulatives do need to be prepared in advance, which I will go ahead and show you what you'll need to do for those. There's a list of the curriculum items that you'll have, the manipulatives that you'll have in the front of the course book in the About section. As you can see, it says the items that are included in the activity box are all listed right here. However, you will need to collect additional materials for the Level K Part 1 workbook, along with some standard supplies. And you'll need to also have a few standard supplies on hand for the Level 2 or Level K Part 2 and some additional materials for that. So you'll want to make sure that before you start the course, you collect what you need for the curriculum and put it all in the activity box so you have it all in one place. When you first get your math activity box, there will be a few bubble wraps that you'll have to take out, and you'll have to undo a few different things in here. This came in a box, but this is a Rec and Rec, which is a bead board that you'll be using in part 2 of the curriculum. So this is something that will come up that you'll be using. You also get 2 different sets of dice or die. The one is a 9-sided dice, and then the other is a 6-sided dice. One with dots, one with numbers, which is nice. You will also get a set of wooden blocks. And these are obviously, like I said, wood, different colors, and they're very lightweight, which is nice for little hands, and they're smaller for little hands as well. So you'll be using this for building, patterns, a lot of different things in the curriculum. You'll also get some toothpicks that you'll need for different shape activities and different things like that. And then you'll also get these little baggies. These baggies hold the manipulatives that do have some assembly required when you receive the package. If you take a look here, there's this big package of very hardy cardboard manipulatives that you'll have to break apart. But just to kind of give you an idea of what is included, you get the pattern pieces, and when you break them apart, they are sturdy. They're pretty thick, sturdy pieces. So you get these along with B manipulatives, which goes along with the story in section 1 of the course book, which I'll show you. And again, these are just one-sided little pictures but they're hardy cardstock or cardboard. In part 2, you'll go into gardening, and you'll use these garden manipulatives along with some of the 10-frame boards I'll show you in a few minutes. And then you'll also have these inchworm manipulatives. These are all included in this pack here, and once you actually undo this pack, you'll be able to pull them apart, and they give you the little baggies to go in here. The inchworms are actually used in part 2 of the course book and the curriculum for an introduction to measurement in length and you'll be using the inchworms. These are actually 1 inch long before introducing a ruler and what a ruler has, or like the inch ruler. So also in the activity box, you get these 2 booklet style manipulatives. One is the calendar, my calendar, which I'll show you next. The other one is my place value chart. And in this place value chart, it's nice because it opens up like this, it folds down. But you will have some assembly required here with these pouches. These pouches will need to be attached to where the pockets are shown on the place value chart. And place value is one of those things that is talked about every day in the daily dose, which I'll show you when we get into the course book. But this is one of the little booklets you get along with the My Calendar. And this is also another part of the daily dose in the course book. And in this book, it has a little section about me that you'll do at the beginning of the curriculum whenever you start teaching. And then it has each month starting in January going to December. And in the course book, it says to start with whatever month you are beginning the curriculum. So for me, I will be starting in July, end of July, because of my school year being year-round. So I will go ahead and follow starting at July, and then when I get to the end, we'll go back to the beginning in January. You also get these cards. These are Hardy card stock that's laminated, and mine obviously I didn't open yet, but my mother-in-law let me borrow her manipulatives so I could go ahead and show you. And there's 2 different things that come with this. There's these pattern mats, if you will, that have a front and a back, and they start off with very simple shapes that you're building with. As you can see, triangles, squares, and trapezoids. And this is one of the bonus activities that you'll see in the course book when we get to it. But there are 24 different pattern cards, and obviously they start very simple and they work harder and get more difficult as you get further along. As you can see, like the snowflake, using different types of patterns, an apple, turkey, and so on. Another thing that's included in this little bundle here are these 10 frames, and you'll start with the honeycomb 10 frame or the beehive 10 frame, and then you'll get into gardening 10 frames. Now there's only one honeycomb 10 frame because I believe in section 1 of the curriculum you're only teaching the children or your child up from 0 to 10, so you won't really need more than one of these. Once you get to section 2, start working into larger numbers that'll require more than one 10 frame. And then you'll also, on the back of a few of these, 3 of these, you have little chalkboards that you'll use as well. There are also place value pieces. This is on heavy cardstock. There are 100, 200, and I think 15 or 16 down here. So 360 10 blocks, if you will. But you won't need all of them. So there's only one of these. However, if you download the PDF along with the curriculum, you will have this available to print. So let's say you run out, you can print more on a Hardy cardstock. And again, this is not too heavy, it's just heavy enough so that when they color these blocks, which they'll be required to do in part of the daily dose, that it doesn't bleed through. And these will actually get stuck into the place value chart pockets that I showed you earlier. So once these will actually need to be cut out beforehand so that you pull them out and use them as your child needs them. Then you get a set of these cards. Now in these cards there's actually different things that you'll find. There are number cards. There's a lot of number cards. You will be using these a lot during the curriculum. However, there's multiple sets of 0 through 20. So I'm sure there's a reason for that, and I haven't found it yet in the curriculum as I haven't started yet. So there's these along with the words even and odd as part of the number set. You then also get 10 frames, and as you can see, you have 10 frames with just one 10 frame here going from 0 to 10, and then you also have 10 frames with cards with 2 10 frames that go from 11 to 20. And then finally, you'll have shape cards with 3D and 2D shapes. So these are all included. And as you can see, you'll have to pull these apart. They're all in here in one big package, and you'll probably have to spend probably 5-10 minutes just pulling them out so that you have them ready to go. For me, I will most likely separate these into categories. So I'll have like shapes, I'll have the 10 frames, and I'll have the numbers all in different baggies, and then put those baggies in a bigger baggie for organization purposes. The last two things you get in your kit are a part whole work mat, and this helps with teaching addition and subtraction, along with a handwriting card. And with this handwriting card, it is laminated so that you'll get to use white erase or dry erase markers on it, and you can wipe it off. You'll also be practicing them one at a time in the beginning, and then you'll start doing it where the child practices all of them in one sitting. I also like the fact that they teach the phone numbers. By the end of the school year or the end of the curriculum, your child should be able to know 2 phone numbers. So for my husband and I, or our family, it'll be my husband's cell phone and my cell phone number, because we don't have a house phone. Now, one thing I will say is that in the course book, they do give you little auditory bubbles, which I'll show you when we get to the flip through. However, I will most likely find rhymes to go along with these because my son really likes rhyming, and he also excels better at learning things whenever there's a little poem that goes along with it. So from my teaching days, I know that there are rhymes or poems that go along with the number formation that I'm going to find, and I'll make sure that once I find them, I'll link them in this video below. And I showed you the part whole, which is just one-sided. And that's everything that comes in the activity box. As I mentioned before, there are additional manipulatives you're going to have to collect to have on hand, and I would just suggest this box is big enough with everything inside of it. You still have space to put those other manipulatives. I would just put them in little Ziploc baggies so that you have them organized, and that way all you need is this box for all your manipulatives. As I mentioned in the beginning, when you purchase the curriculum, you do get 2 course books, part 1 and part 2. Each course book has 2 sections in it, and each section focuses on a certain math concept that your child needs to learn in kindergarten. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the part 1 course book, and then we'll move into the part 2 course book. In the beginning, you can see that they have some introductory type pages. One is the table of contents that kind of gives you an idea of what is being learned in part 1 of the course book. This table of contents only has part 1. In part 2, you'll see a table of contents for that course book. And as you can see, it's broken into 2 sections. Section 1 focuses on number sense, 0 through 10, and section 2 focuses on addition and subtraction. Section 1, you'll see there's a story in the beginning when I show you, and that's when I was telling you earlier about the 10 frames, that honeycomb 10 frame. That's the reason there's only 1 of those 10 frames, because it's only focusing on number sense 0 through 10. So you're not going to need another 10 frame for section 1, and you really won't need those other ones until you get to section 2 and section 3 and section 4. Now, if you're looking at the lessons, you'll notice that they kind of vary. There's one thing about this curriculum is it's a combination between spiral and mastery. Spiral curriculum is when spiral teaching is when a curriculum focuses on introducing multiple concepts over a time frame, but spiraling back to those concepts over and over again over the course of the year or over the course of the curriculum. A mastery curriculum is one where you work on a concept or a skill until it is completely mastered. The Good and the Beautiful does a very good job of mixing the two together so that you are getting a balance of mastery and spiral approaches. So as you'll see in this first section, you're really focusing on practicing numbers 1 through 5 in the beginning, and then they introduce 6 through 10, and then they introduce them in multiple different ways, like tally marks, subsidizing, which is when you are looking at a number and are able to just tell how many there are. It's really something that comes along with dice. That's a skill that comes along with dice. And then other things like shapes, basic shapes, patterns, counting on and counting down. And then it kind of gets into a little bit of addition here before going into full-on addition in section 2. So addition and subtraction are introduced a little bit here in section 1, just to prepare. But in my second video, or part 2 of this series, I will go into detail on what I love about this curriculum when it comes to the way they scaffold the concepts they're teaching. So I don't want to get too much into that on this video. Again, this is just more of a flip through. So they have the table of contents, then you move on to their educational philosophy with math. And I love this because it gives you an idea of where they're coming from, why the curriculum was created, why they created it, when, what they're trying to focus on, what is important to them. You don't really find this much in a course book, which is kind of nice that they have it right here. You can also find this on their website. You can probably find a little more detail and in-depth answers on their website as well, but it's really nice that they included this in the workbook. So when you get it, make sure to read through it because it'll give you a little bit of an idea of where they're coming from and why they created the curriculum the way they did. So there's 2 pages kind of focusing on that. And then you get, at a glance, the Level K course. One thing I really like about this is they do tell you what you need, the course prerequisites. This is very basic things for them to do in the beginning, knowing before and after, identifying certain colors, and can count up to 10, can count 5 objects, more like one-on-one object counting. Can count or identify numbers 1 through 5, can identify a circle, triangle, square, and rectangle, knows how to hold and use a pencil, and knows how to use scissors. These are all things my son already does. However, if your child is on the brink of some of these, you might want to wait a week or 2 or a month, depending on where they are on getting all of these. Because from looking through the curriculum, I have found that these are many things you need to have right off the bat. So in the course, you'll notice that it's kind of broken up into categories based on the math concepts that they're learning or the math skills they're learning. Number recognition is one, number sense and operations, patterns, geometry, measurement is broken up into 4 categories with time, length, money, and graphing. Length, I did notice there is an assessment in the, I think it's section 4 that focuses on length and other types of measurement. And there is an assessment at the end of that section. However, length is not assessed in the final assessment, so that leads me to believe that it's not something that they're going to go in depth on in this course and more in the next course, level 1. So as you can see, and then there's bonus materials. One of the things that they do, and I mentioned this when we were looking at the handwriting mat, is they get to memorize and write 1 phone number. 1 phone number is what they're trying for. However, if you have 2 parents, then you'll want probably your child to learn both phone numbers for that. Or if you have a home phone, and one of you obviously is staying home teaching the children, so that's helpful. So it's nice to have this. Again, under each category, it tells you exactly what they're learning. This is almost like a scope and sequence in a way, where without the sequence part, where it's just giving you an idea of what your child's gonna learn throughout the year. Then you move on to about the course, and this I would suggest reading through before you even start looking at the course. I believe that this is available for download on Jenny Phillips' website. I'll double check that, but I believe it is under the course sample, course book sample. So I'll have a link to it below in the description box, and you can download it and see if it is, but she has most of the beginning pages in her sample. So if you want, before even buying the curriculum, read through this and see if it's going to fit your homeschool. So it, just to kind of give a quick overview, it has what's included in the set when you purchase the whole set. You get the 2 course books, the activity box, an answer key that's a download, and the songs, which is a download, which I mentioned before, and I will show you how to get to those at the end of the video. We already talked about the activity box and the other materials you'll need. Then over here, it kind of goes into more about the actual course. It has the length of the course, and one thing to note is that they only say to really focus on doing 4 lessons a week. So it's a suggestion. Obviously, if you want to do more than 4 and get through the curriculum faster, you can. For me, because we are doing a full year-round school year, and I scheduled for 40 weeks of school, I will most likely do 3 lessons a week, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type schedule. If you do 4 lessons a week, you will most likely complete it in 30 weeks. I imagine that with me doing 3 lessons a week, I'll most likely complete it in 30 to 40 weeks. So that's just something to note. And if you look at my planning video, you can see that I used a scope and sequence to map it out. In that video, I did do 5 days a week. However, I will be changing that, and I'll make sure to put an update on my blog along with Instagram and YouTube, kind of showing you how I updated it and how I changed it based on looking at the curriculum again. Another thing is the daily math routine. There is a section called the daily dose. This is actually going into all of them. So this is just telling you what you're going to do on a daily basis and how long it should take about for each section of the lesson. And I'm assuming for my son, it'll probably take a 30 to 45 minute time frame. I might break that up depending on his endurance, but again, this upcoming school year, I'm definitely going to be a little more strict on our time frame. So there's 4 sections to each lesson, and it starts with the daily dose. The daily dose focuses mostly on calendar and place value, and you'll have some shape practice and pattern practice in there as well. That is almost kind of like if you would make it equivalent to a morning meeting in a way for math. So daily dose should not take very long. It should be something that you do in a very short time frame. And I will be making a note about this when I show you a lesson on the daily dose. There is something that I'll be doing a little different when I get there. Then there's the actual lesson, which is direct instruction. You one-on-one with your child, teaching them a new concept. That should take about 10 minutes, and from looking through the lessons, they aren't too difficult, so I feel that this is probably going to be something that you can do. However, I did find with the Good and the Beautiful reading curriculum for my son, I would have to break up some of the lessons into 2 days. So with my 3-day or 3 lessons a week schedule, I will have flexibility for that since I'll have 2 extra days during the week. So if a lesson takes 2 days, I don't think that's a problem. However, I'm going to try and stick with the 10-minute time frame. If it's getting over 10 minutes, then maybe that's when I'll be like, you know what, let's finish this lesson tomorrow. Then there's a student worksheet. They suggest that it should take 5 minutes, and from looking at the worksheets, they are pretty simple. There's only 1 to 2 things on each worksheet that are required of the student. And in the beginning of the course books and the course, you'll find that it's focusing on one topic or one concept being taught. As you get further along in the curriculum, you're going to notice maybe 1, 2, or even 3 concepts being reviewed. They never put things together that are all being taught at the same time, if that makes sense. So if there's more than one concept on a worksheet, one of those concepts might be new, but then the other one should be review, which I really like about the worksheets in this. And they're only 1 to 2 pages each worksheet, so it depends on the type of activity they're required to do. They do have cut and paste, they have tracing, they have coloring, they have mazes. There's a bunch of different types of worksheets, so there's a variety, which is nice as well. It's not just the same thing over and over again, which is something I found in some other curriculums I was using, so that is nice. And then finally, the last thing is a bonus independent activity. This is where your child is just working on their own. They might need a little bit of instruction in the beginning just to understand what they have to do. But after that, it's more of they're all hands-on focused, so they're working with one of the manipulatives or more than one manipulative, and they're either building or creating, and it's a nice little activity where it's still building on important math concepts, but it's a little less focused and direct instruction. Then they go into course preparation. That's just telling you to go ahead and get the items together in your math activity box, remove anything that you need, cut things, collect certain things. And then they go into individualized instruction. This is really, this page and then the next page you'll see, this is when you're focusing on your child's pace and timing and how you should really use the course based on your child's needs. Then it goes into talking about how when you're teaching multiple children how to use this course. And then it gives a little bit of a blurb on the section and course assessments. Now this is something you'll want to read or come back to whenever you get to those assessments. There's 4 section assessments, as there are 4 sections in the course books. And then there's one final assessment at the very end of course book 2, part 2, that reviews all of the items, well, majority of the items. And you'll see that they kind of give you an idea of, based on your child's score, what you should do and what enrichment you can give to kind of help them get caught up. Then you move right into the first section. And one thing that's nice to note about this is each section kind of has a theme. The sections have a story at the beginning, and then throughout the lessons, that story will be referenced to multiple times. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be referenced to it throughout the whole section, because each section has about, I would say, 45 to 50 lessons, maybe less. Section 4 has a few less because there's only 117 in the actual course. So maybe 25 to 35 is more reasonable. But one thing you'll note is there's a little story at the beginning. Most of the time you don't introduce the story in the first lesson, and I'll show you the other stories later on, but it's normally introduced in the second or third lesson of the section. So this one is about bees and Max, and you'll see that there's little sections or little additions to the story throughout the lessons when you're going through this course book that kind of add to the story or enhance the story a little bit further in the course book further along. So you'll start off with a story in the section, and then it'll jump into the first lesson. Now this is not a really good example of a normal lesson layout, because in the first lesson they do a lot of focus on introducing the idea of the daily dose and what's included with the daily dose. So I'll give you a few other lessons that you can look at to see really how the layout works. But in this first lesson, they have the daily dose, and they talk about what you'll do with the daily dose. There is a little bit of setup when it comes to the daily dose on that first day. So when you do this first lesson, you'll see that he'll be breaking out the calendar. And for example, I mentioned that we would be starting in July. So I'd go ahead and move to July. And one thing in this course book and in the next course book, they say for the parent to fill in the dates. So you'll go ahead and fill in the dates, but you'll do it while your child is watching, so they can count the number of the days in each month. They're the ones that actually do the checking off, as you'll see here, and then you'll move into place value and writing the date. So that's one of the things that you'll be using the calendar, and that is part of the daily dose. After the daily dose, you have a lesson, and like I said, in this one, this is mostly focused on the daily dose and getting that all together. And then you'll have the student worksheet. As you can see, the student worksheet is very simple. It's colorful, however, not too overwhelming. This one's a cut and paste, and there's a few others that are different. This one's cut and paste, there's colors and mazes and things like I mentioned before. Then they have a bonus independent activity. Now, these vary throughout the course book. In the beginning, you're gonna have a lot of pattern cards and picture cards, which is nice because your child is just getting used to the manipulatives and making patterns and things like that. But they do get into the blocks and other things as well. So I'll go ahead and show you a few of those. So this is just an example of the first lesson. Now, to give you a little more of a look at a typical lesson, the daily dose has already been introduced, so it's kind of smaller on the page. As you can see, calendar, check off the months of the year song, writing the date, place value chart, and shape shuffle graph, which is in the appendix, and I'll show you that later. These are all things that are part of the daily dose. And then you go into the lesson. This one's telling you to refer back to the story because this is the first one where you'll read the story, and then it goes into some direct instruction. They'll tell you what manipulatives you'll need. They give you exactly what you need written down, and just like the Good and the Beautiful reading curriculum, they do show you what you need to say, which is nice, especially for those who, need a little more instruction. And then as you're going through the lesson, you'll see that each section of a lesson is kind of broken up. So you see daily dose, lesson, and then student worksheet I consider a separate part of the lesson because it is the child working on something by themselves, and then the bonus independent activity. So it's separated very nicely where you can see and easily find what you're gonna do. Now, when it comes to a lesson, depending on the concept being taught, as they get more difficult, I may break up a lesson into 2 days depending on what's being taught, like I do with the reading curriculum. However, I'm gonna play it week by week, day by day, kind of see how my son's doing with it. Student worksheet, here's another example of one. This one's doing coloring and pencil work where you're matching, and then another bonus activity. As you get further in the curriculum, I'll kind of flip through quickly, you'll see that they change with blocks. Here's another cut and paste. They have, here's the handwriting or the student worksheet. This is actually part of the handwriting practice. Instead of using the handwriting card, they do start there, but then they start working on paper, which is good for recording their progress. And they have different student worksheets as well here. So here's an example of a maze. As you can see, it kind of varies a dot to dot, but it varies, and it's nice that it has, sorry, I want to show you this. Another thing that the Good and the Beautiful is really well known for is including art and science within their lessons, and history. So one of the first 10 lessons, as you can see, lesson 7, it's already introducing math and art with Vincent van Gogh, and they have art throughout the curriculum for math, along with their reading curriculums. If any of you use their reading curriculums, they have art included. So it's very nice that they do that because it's tying all of the parts of our world together. And like art's not separate from math, art's not separate from language arts, so it's important that children are seeing that all these things are tied together. So this, just to show you this example, this one, they just have one of the pictures from Vincent van Gogh, and they get asked these certain questions on how many objects are in the picture, which is kind of nice. And so just to kind of, I'm gonna just do a quick little flip through of this, just so you can see. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast, but I do not want to keep you too long. So you can see they have bonus activities with building blocks where they have to match by actually using those blocks, the wooden blocks I was showing you, and creating each of these towers. And then you get to the end of a section, which I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward to that, and you'll get to a section assessment. Now, these section assessments are a lesson within themselves, so you would do this as one day. They do still include the daily dose because that is something that is supposed to be done daily, and then they go into the section assessment. There's different parts of the section assessment. There's an oral assessment. This is where you're going to ask your child a question and they're going to answer it, whether it's moving things around or using their hands or saying it aloud. Then they have a written assessment, and that is where it's on, most of the time it's on the next page. And this is where you'll read the instructions to them, but then they need to go ahead and do this by themselves. And they have a little bonus activity, still following the lesson format where you have the daily dose, you have the lesson, which is this section assessment, and the student worksheet is really the written assessment, and then the bonus activity. If you find that your child after the section assessment just needs to chill, I feel like a bonus activity is optional because they don't really give you a specific one to do. They let your child choose which one, and if your child's not feeling up to it, I would just say stop after that. One thing I did forget to mention with the daily dose is the calendar checkoff. Because I'm only going to be doing my lessons 3 days a week, I will most likely do the calendar checkoff every single day, even if I'm not teaching a lesson that day. So Monday through Sunday, because I do want my son to realize that the calendar continues. It doesn't just stop on a Friday. It is a Saturday and a Sunday, and it doesn't just happen on days that we have school. So that is one thing I'm going to do a little different with the daily dose. This will be every day, and then this will be, the rest of it will be with a lesson. So another thing that the course books have are appendixes at the end, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm planning on pulling all these pieces out in the beginning of our course or as they come up. They are mentioned in the lessons when you need them. However, I might go ahead and just pull them all out and have them organized ahead of time, or laminate certain ones based on what is going to be used. This one I wouldn't laminate because it is one that they're going to color in, but this is in the first few lessons. They do a shape shuffle. You have some other pages back here that you'll be using throughout. They've got different number lines, so you'll most likely be using these for teaching counting on and counting back, along with addition and skip counting. I have a few pages of that. I can't wait to do these. These are targets. These go along with addition and subtraction facts, and this is actually going to be in my next video. I'll talk more in depth about these, but I have never seen these before in my teaching years, and I'm just so excited to show you this specifically with my scaffolding video. So just a little teaser, spoiler, this will be mentioned in the next video. So they've got a few of these, and then that's it for course book 1. Then you move on to course book 2, and there is an introductory section, but it's just really the table of contents and the manipulatives you'll need. In this section you can see, or in this part, you'll see that section 2 is continued from course book 1, and then it goes into section 3. Again, a section review and a section assessment are at the end of each section. Section 3 is going to be focusing on numbers up to 20. So this is where you're going to get into the more than one 10 frame, and you'll probably use those flashcards that have more than one 10 frame as well. And then section 4 goes into measurement. As you can see, section 4 is kind of tiny compared to the other sections. So that's why I was mentioning before that I feel that this is just going to be an introduction, and that's why it's not assessed in the final assessment of this course. This will most likely be something that's really focused on in the level 1 course book. So table of contents is in the beginning, along with the supplies and the additional materials you'll need, which I mentioned. If you get those ahead of time and put them in your activity box, you can even put them all in a big Ziploc bag that says part 2. That way you know not to even touch them until you get there, but then you're not stressing out about the next day being like, oh, I have to get all these things together. Then the lessons continue, and you'll see that it still has the daily dose layout, still has the lesson, has the student worksheet, and has the bonus activity. Now, in this second course book, there is something I am very excited about when it comes to integrating science, almost like STEM, with the technology and science combined with the architecture and art. So I'll show you this junior engineering and the junior art cards that are actually in the appendix when I get there. But as you can see, the student worksheets are getting a little more difficult. They have more activities going on. I'll just kind of give you a quick flip through. Ooh, here's another one with art. The art activity, now they're going into including more art, talking a little bit about the picture or the painting that's done, and then this one is going into addition, which is something that's talked about in course book 2 or course book 1. They talk about nature, and I was so excited when I looked through this book and saw doubles in nature and in real life, because as a teacher, like teaching doubles, I never did it because I was a fourth and sixth grade teacher. I never actually had to do the doubles with kindergarten and actually teaching those concepts, but they do such a great job. I mean, look, they have the spider legs, 4 and 4 make 8, eyes, ears, hands with 5 and 5 fingers. I mean, it's just such a great way to tie math into everyday life, into nature, into things that your child's going to really understand because they already see it. So as I mentioned, I'm loving this curriculum and I haven't even started it yet. So it's just one thing I really wanted to point out. So then they get into fact families and they have these cute little different things. So just gonna flip through a few of these pages just so you can kind of see. They have games. I forgot to mention they do have games in the curriculum. Then section assessments again. They have a section assessment at the end of every section. They always have it broken up into an oral and a written. And the written assessment is really only 1 page. As I mentioned before too, there's a story at the beginning of every section that is referenced throughout that section. So this one is actually where that Reck and Rec comes into play with the beads, and you'll see they teach you how to use it and what they're actually gonna be doing with that. So just to go ahead and give you a few more pages, more art, shapes. They have different cultures in here too, which is something I really like seeing. It gives a little bit of history and culture lessons. So anyways, let me go ahead and skip to the back here with this one. I do want to show you the final assessment. So here's the section 4 assessment, or no, that's section 3 assessment. Here's the section 4 assessment, and the section 4 assessment is same as the other ones, oral, written, and then a bonus. Actually, this one does not have a written. Interesting. Well, this one doesn't have a written. So then after the section 4 assessment, that's the last lesson, that's a lesson 117, then you'll see that you have the level K final assessment. They suggest taking 2 days or more to complete this assessment because it is longer. You have the oral, you have the written, and then there's a few more pages for this one. As you can see, they've got 1, 2, 3 pages for the written portion of this assessment. And it's reviewing, the reason this one's so much longer is it's reviewing the whole course. So that's why I say, and they say, take more than 1 day to do this. Don't make your child sit and do this whole thing in 1 day. Unless you feel that they're capable and won't be angry with you. So, and then finally, there's an appendix at the end of section 2, or part 2. And in here, as I mentioned, there's certain things I might cut out and just laminate ahead of time so that I'm not worrying about pulling them out the week before and cutting them. But there's 10, counting by 10 cards. There's these fact family cards, which I'll be interested to see how those are used. And then, this is what I wanted to show you. So they've got these junior artist and junior engineering cards where your child will be using the pattern blocks to recreate things in these famous pieces of art. So the pattern blocks are the ones I showed you that are little cardboard things. However, if you have the wooden blocks, wooden pattern blocks in your manipulative bundle or whatever you have at home already, you can have them use the bigger ones if you really like. But these are color-coded to match the ones that come with the curriculum. So you can see there they have a certain artist they get to practice, and the name of the painting or the picture, and then what they are to recreate. So I really, really like that they're tying math into some of these things. And this one, I mean, you can look, this is the tree, this is the lake, and here's the boat on top, here's the peacock, So they have a bunch of these different cards that you'll be using in. So you can see this one goes 1, 2, so they're back to back. So when you cut these out, they'll kind of be like those pattern block cards from section 1 or from part 1, where they have a front and a back. But you'll need to laminate or do them yourself. If you want them laminated, you don't really need to. And then after the art ones, so there are 16 art cards. Then they go into junior engineering, and this is where they bring in architecture from around the world. And they start with Washington, D.C., and they get to build the Capitol building with those blocks, with the wooden blocks. So in the art ones, they get to use the pattern blocks because they're different shapes, and they allow them to recreate a picture using pattern blocks or shapes. In this one, it's the actual physical wooden blocks, so they get to see the 3D portion of it as well. So 2D, 3D, but they have the different main architecture that you'll find throughout the world. So Winchester Castle, a bunch of different things. The Giza, Pyramid of Giza, and then it's actually pretty accurate with the way that they were built, so it's kind of a conversation starter there. And then it goes into, so those are the junior engineering cards. As you can see, there's 16 of those as well. And then it goes into these mountain and valley charts, which I'll be interested to see how they use those. And a few more number lines. Now, in course book 1, you saw that they stopped at 10 and they had multiple 10 ones. This one, they actually stop at 20. And this one you tape together, like these two would be taped together. And then a hundreds chart, and some shape cards and nets. So this is something that you might want to actually assemble ahead of time and have already done, or have a 3D, if you have them at home already, have a 3D version of it, and then they get to see the net portion, because nets are something that are introduced later in math in school, elementary school and middle school. So giving them a little introduction in their kindergarten year, and I'm sure they will revisit this in the other course books, but giving them a little introduction isn't going to hurt them. But they've got different nets here, and that is what the inside of the course books look like. So as she mentions in the course book, she does have downloads available online for the PDF answer key, along with 2 MP3 songs that you'll use throughout the course. So to get to those, you go to the Good and the Beautiful website, which is jennyphillips.com/goodandbeautiful, or good-beautiful. And then you go ahead over here to the tab that says Math. Once you get to Math, you're going to scroll down and select the curriculum. Now, obviously, we're talking about level K, but as she gives more of the different levels, you'll see that same information below. So you want level K, and then you want to scroll down to Course Set Includes. Now, this is the same thing that was mentioned in the course book, the Level K course book part 1, part 2, the Level K math activity box, and then the Level K answer key. If you select this, it'll take you to a screen where it says that you'll need to make a purchase. However, if you look, it's free. So you just go ahead and go through the shopping. You don't actually have to purchase it. You'll just go ahead and fill this out and then download it. So that is what you'll do for the PDF answer key. When you go back to that page with the math course, you'll also see the free MP3 songs. So there's 2 songs you'll be using, and if you click on the link, it'll come to the song, and you'll hear the song, and you'll wonder, how do I download this? Well, there's a little menu over here. You just click download, and it'll download the MP3 for you. Thank you so much for watching this video on the flip through and look at the Good and the Beautiful Level K math curriculum. Stay tuned for part 2 coming later this week, where I will go ahead and use my teacher expertise to share some of the things I love about this curriculum, specifically when in regards to scaffolding of different concepts that are being taught to your child. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos, and please like or comment below if this video was helpful for you and your family. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.